Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Very good, very good. You've unwittingly proven one of my first points, which is a good thing. All right. This is, I think, probably the most challenging talk that I've ever written. Challenging for a number of reasons, one of which the topic. Okay, this is a pretty tough topic. I don't think anyone's really got this right yet, and I'm not pretending to have already gotten it right. So the topic's a tough one. Equally, I'm going to use examples, analogies, stories from areas such as basketball and cricket, two sports which aren't particularly that well played in Norway. I'm not talking about your ability here, I'm just talking about the number of people that actually play them. So that's going to be tough. Equally, I'm going to put in a little bit of poetry, which I've never done before in my life. Now, I don't know how that's going to go down. And I'm going to be looking for some audience participation. Which, as if any of you have been watching the hashtags for this talk, you'll have seen yesterday and today a couple of tweets there. I love it when the speakers try to coerce an answer from a Norwegian crowd. Futility. And you really have to be an excellent entertainer to get the NDC audience to laugh or interact. Now, I don't believe that. I don't suppose there's any, by any chance, we've got either Bjorn or Dennis in the room today. I should probably ask Kevlin what the probability of that would be, shouldn't I, really? There's a lot of probability going around, which is pretty good. Anyway, I'm going to give it a go. To help me, I've brought along a special guest. Does anybody know Elmo? Elmo, yeah, he's Sesame Street over here. Elmo, very cute, here he is. I've borrowed this from my son. He doesn't know I borrowed it. So I do need to get it back. But Elmo's going to help me today with the audience interaction. So who likes Elmo? Brilliant, catch. Okay. Elmo would like to know, how agile is your team? Pretty bad? What? Not very agile. What makes you say it's not very agile? How would you kind of judge that? We don't have communication with the product owner, okay. 20% of the team says, I'll never do that. What, never do agile or never talk to the product owner? Okay, so 20% of the team don't want to be agile. Okay, so that's pretty tough. So you've actually broken your time boxes. Okay, so that doesn't sound very agile. Okay. Now we're just doing what the developers want to do. Okay, so we're just going with whatever people are shouting about. We're just doing it. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. What's your name? Jesus. Thank you very much, Jesus. Could you now throw Elmo to somebody else in the crowd? Go on. Oh, person that's landed nearest, pick it up. Brilliant. Hi, what's your name? Andreas. Thank you very much for picking up Elmo. How agile is your team? Quite agile. Okay, define quite agile for me. Okay, so the team is agile, but the environment around them is not. So tell me more. How do you know that the team is quite agile? Okay, so everybody wants to be agile. That's a good start. So this is your third time, so you've got a bit of experience now. So just try and be a little bit more specific for me if you can. So what makes them agile and what makes them not brilliant at agile, but still quite agile? I like it. I like it. Okay, so we're implementing the spirit of Agile to get to where we need to go. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Andreas. Could you see if you can reach me? Brilliant. Round of applause for Jesus Andreas for interacting. Okay, very good. Very good. So there's some interesting stuff there that I'll try and draw on. So we're talking about, blowing our time boxes, collaborating with our product owner, the spirit of Agile, whatever that is. We'll talk about that again. next question for you. What are our company's greatest asset? Shout it out. People? Information? Who thinks people? A lot of people. A lot of people think this is the quote that is often thrown out. Yeah, a lot of organisations say our people are our greatest asset. Personally, I disagree with that. Okay, I think actually our teams are our greatest asset. You can have good people, but they might not produce much unless they're in a team, and that team works well. And a lot of Agile, this spirit of Agile, if I'm going to use Andreas's term, the spirit of Agile talks a lot about teams. Even though things like the Agile Manifesto talk about individuals, my experience says that teams are much more likely to produce better results. They produce better results, better products. They're much better at solving complex problems. And interestingly enough, I found this interesting, team players can tolerate twice as much pain as those who work alone. I thought this was interesting. Okay, this is from Oxford University's research of their rowing team. So what they did was they got 2 teams of 6 in the gym on rowing machines, rowing for 45 minutes continuously. And these teams were linked into a virtual boat. So 45 minutes, rowing as a team, all there at the same time. And after that, they were then tested for how much pain they could tolerate. And the way that they tested for pain tolerance was putting a blood pressure cuff on their arm and keep inflating it, keep inflating it, keep inflating it until it got too painful. Then they did the same experiment with a difference, obviously, and the difference being that each of those same people were rowing for the same amount of time, but with nobody else watching them, in complete isolation. And then they were tested for their pain tolerance, and they found that although in both tests they produced the same amount, roughly, about the same amount of productivity, so there wasn't extra effort in either of these tests, the amount of pain that they could tolerate was significantly different. And what they were saying there is that teamwork leads to a creation of endorphins within the body. And endorphins were acting as some kind of painkiller, whereas we were working on our own, we didn't have that. I thought it was interesting. I'm not encouraging you to inflict pain on your teams, all right? But it's another interesting example of how when people are working together, you get very different results. Now, not all teams are successful. Okay, this is the England football team after our disastrous World Cup. But hey, at least we got there. So, not making it any easier for myself, am I? So, what makes a team likely to be successful as opposed to a team that's likely to be unsuccessful? Now, I'm not going to go down the England football route, that's been well documented. But I am going to start my team exploration in the realm of basketball, like I promised. Now, even if you're not particularly well aware of basketball and don't follow it particularly well, most people will have heard of the Chicago Bulls. Yeah? Is it good? Most people would have heard of people like Michael Jordan, Dennis Rodman, these kinds of people. This is the starting lineup of the Chicago Bulls in 1995-96. Now, forgive me, I haven't memorized all of these statistics, so I've just got them on a little card here. The Chicago Bulls in 95-96 were probably, it's hard to define these things, but probably one of the most successful basketball teams in the history of the NBA. Okay? They won 87% of their games. And you're talking, over 100 games a season in basketball. They had the best record in other people's stadiums, so they call that the road record in America. With away games, they had the best record ever in the NBA. They also had the best start to the season ever in the NBA. They had the longest winning streak, 44 games won in a row. They're the only team in history to have 3 of their players in the all-star defensive team out of 5. Michael Jordan got the scoring record. Dennis Rodman got the rebound record, and the coach, Phil Jackson, who's an interesting person in its own right, won Coach of the Year. Now, all these numbers here are the statistics, and American sports, they love their statistics, right? And numbers just on there that probably don't really mean a lot. So I'm going to pick out a few that are quite important. Now these ones that I've got highlighted here are the highest ones. So we've got games played, we've got technical rebounds, assists, field goals, steals, blocks, turnovers, points, the main things that they measure in basketball. And you can see no one person is top in all of them. So you can see Dennis Rodman got 952 technical rebounds, a lot more than the rest of his teammates. That was his thing. Right. Scottie Pippen got 452 assists, more than anybody else in the Bulls team. These components of a winning team, the ability to score, the ability to set your teammates up, the ability to get the ball back off the other team, these components of a winning team were effectively spread out across these players, apart from Ron Harper. Okay, so Ron Harper didn't lead the team in anything. But when he didn't play, they didn't win. All right? He was often referred to as the glue that held this team together. Interesting. The point of bringing this up here is that teams will have a composition of skills. Now, while Dennis Rodman was by far and away the best rebounder in the team, he wasn't the only person that did that. And that's not the only thing that he did. And I've heard a couple of things talked about in this conference and outside of this conference around specialists and generalists and things like that. And I would argue here, by looking at these stats, that you pretty much have a team of generalizing specialists. So you have someone who is amazing at technical rebounds, someone who's brilliant at assists, someone who's brilliant at blocks. But that's not the only thing that they do, and they're not the only person that does it. That's, to me, a sign of a really healthy, well-set-up team. An example of a slightly less well-set-up team. So I've been to Denver a couple of times in the last year, and because I like sport, when I'm somewhere, I try and watch some sport. And so I went along and I watched the Denver Nuggets, and I picked up on a few of the things that were going on in this team in the last year or so. And I don't expect any of you to necessarily be aware of this, but the Nuggets had a superstar, an all-star basketball player called Carmelo Anthony. He's been there for a long time. But this year, he decided he wanted to move on at the end of the year. He wasn't going to accept the new contract that was on the table for him. Something like $90 million wasn't really enough for him. So he was going to move on. But he wasn't going to move on until the end of the season. So he carried on playing for the Nuggets when everybody knew he was leaving. And the crowd weren't particularly fond of that. There was speculation every day, every week about where he was going. And the Nuggets were a very successful team. They've won their conference for a while, for a few years in a row. They weren't doing very well this year. Until February, when the Nuggets decided, we're not going to wait until the end of the year, we're going to get rid of you now. By far and away their best player, they got rid of him. Unfortunately, in order for them to get rid of him, they had to get rid of their other superstar. So not only did they lose their number one player, they lost their second best player as well, Chauncey Billups. So now they were left without two of their best players. Yet their results picked up. So I'm just going to read you a very short piece of information that was written about the Nuggets after this trade. It was written in a sports paper. So, without a textbook superstar, the Nuggets have embraced the concept of sharing to the point that it should be used as a how-to guide for kindergarten curriculums nationwide. Playing in front of a sellout crowd for the first time since their blockbuster trade, the Nuggets had 8 players score in double figures Saturday night, and they finished with 33 assists in a 131-101 rout of the Detroit Pistons. Everybody feels good, Ty Lawson said. Everybody's swag is high. I can't say this. It doesn't really sound right coming from me, an English guy. But anyway, everybody's swag is high when you touch the ball and score. You see our locker room, everybody's happy. Everybody's feeling good right now. With Lawson and fellow point guard Raymond Felton leading the way, the Nuggets are averaging 25.4 assists in their past 9 games, compared to 21.2 before the trade. Everyone is passing the rock. I don't know what that means. Including Kmart. Forward Chris Anderson said, "It makes it fun, and we are unstoppable when we pass like that." So what this is saying is, when they got rid of their 2 superstars, everybody else stepped up to the plate. We had 8 players, they had 8 players, I wasn't part of that team, 8 players that scored in double figures, as opposed to relying on a superstar. which is quite interesting. There's also talk of fun, which we'll come back to in a minute. That's it for basketball. Okay. Now we're moving on to cricket. Okay. My safe ground, cricket. Anybody know what this trophy is? No idea. No idea. Probably the most famous trophy in the world of cricket. It's called the Ashes Urn. Okay, it is very small, as you can see. This is the England cricket captain Andrew Strauss holding it proudly. The Ashes Urn has been played for as a competition since 1882. It's only played for by 2 teams, England and Australia, but it's incredibly important for English people and Australians. Now, England, in the last 20 years, have been pretty bad at cricket. Not quite as bad as we've been at football, but pretty bad. Okay, and we decided, as an England cricket board, that the Ashes were going to be very important to us, and that was going to be our focus. We were going to focus everything that we possibly could. Our number one priority, forget the World Cup, forget every other type of cricket that we play, our number one priority was to win this urn back off Australia. So we created a team. 2 years before we were going to play for this urn, we created a team with the intention of winning this urn back. We upset quite a few people by doing this. When we were playing in India, for example, and we lost, the response from the staff, from the players was, well, that's okay, because we've learnt something that will help us win in Australia, and that's the most important thing. Okay, and the Indians weren't particularly happy with that, because they felt a little bit offended that we weren't taking their game seriously. It worked. We won, quite convincingly. And as you can see, we were pretty happy about it. After that, the next challenge was set, again, not to win the World Cup, but to win the Ashes in Australia. We hadn't done that for a quarter of a century. So we went for that, and Duncan Fletcher, who used to be the coach of the England cricket team, very well respected in cricketing circles, said if you want to win in Australia, the number one thing we've got to do is stop picking Alistair Cook. Now this will mean nothing to you guys, all right? But Alistair Cook was our opener, one of our best batsmen, but he wasn't playing very well. He had a really bad couple of years, and they said, right, we've got to get rid of him and pick this new guy, Owen Morgan. Okay, he's got the mental toughness to succeed in Australia. Alistair Cook hasn't. This was the advice, but the England Cricket Board didn't listen to him. They didn't pick Owen Morgan. They stuck with Alistair Cook, and Cookie, as he's referred to, did pretty well. Okay, he got, compared to his normal average of 47.5 runs in a match, he got 127 runs per match in Australia. He broke records. He was named man of the series. He did pretty well. They stuck with him. He rewarded that faith. He was our specialist batsman. Our specialist bowler was Jimmy Anderson, nicknamed Jimmy. And he was leading wicket taker. He was also the night watchman. I'm not sure you understand what a night watchman is. It's a strange concept where we put someone in who's not very good at batting just before the end of the day, so that if we do lose another wicket, it's not one of our good people. So he goes out just before the end of the day in the really difficult circumstances and just tries to stay there. Not a nice job, but he does it for the team. We also had this guy called Paul Collingwood, whose nickname was Weed. Not quite sure why. Now, Collingwood was a pretty good player. He was what we call an all-rounder. So he did some batting, he did some bowling, and he was also our best fielder, so he took a lot of catches. He didn't do very well in this Ashes series, runs-wise, or wickets-wise. He didn't really contribute very highly. But they didn't drop him. They kept with him. Primarily because he was a good fielder, and he was inspirational in the dressing room. He was a good person to have around. We also have this guy called Kevin Pietersen, who is a bowler. He is a batsman, not a bowler. And he did pretty well batting. He got quite a lot of runs. But what he's most remembered for is the fact that when we were struggling in one game, we couldn't get these Australians out. We gave the ball to Kevin Pietersen. Said, go on, have a bowl, KP. See what happens. Nobody else can get them out. Why not have a go? And he got out with the last ball of the day, their vice-captain, Michael Clarke, which led to us being able to then get through the rest of their batsmen and win the game. Took a key wicket, even though he wasn't a bowler. So why am I telling you all this? Well, we've got some specialists in there. We've got some generalists in there. We've got some stability in there, which I'll come on to again in a second. But we've also got the fact that if something needs to be done, we don't just look to our specialists to do that job. Really successful teams will do whatever they need to do to help the team succeed, and KP was doing that. In terms of stability, between the two Ashes series, 2009-2011, the England team changed very little. There were only 3 changes over those 2 years. One of them because one of them retired, another because somebody was injured, the other one due to form. Wasn't doing very well. On the other hand, Australia, quite considerable changes. Changed their team a lot. Almost half of their squad was different 2 years later. Not a lot of consistency there, not a lot of stability. Very reactionary to the changes, to the form, and picking people because they think they might do better than the other person. England was supported by a significant amount of support staff. Supported the team. And in Australia, they were away for, I think, 3 months away from home, 3 months on the other side of the world, during which 2 of the players had children, well, their wives had children. And they needed a few things to keep them going. Now, this is the most challenging part of my most challenging talk, because what I would like you to do is I'd like you to stand up. If nothing else, this will wake you up for the second half of the talk, okay? So go on, humour me and stand up. Now, the England team, and when I say team, I mean the players, the coaching staff, and the fans, all had this thing going on throughout the tour. It was called the sprinkler, all right? And it was a kind of celebratory dance. It was a bit of a team bonding thing. It was a relationship between the players and the crowd. And what they did was, as you can see on the stand with the feet a little bit apart, okay? Put your left hand behind your head like this, and your right hand out in front of you. Now, on sports fields, you've seen sprinklers, right, to get the grass wet. And basically, all this was a replication of the sprinkler. So you start to the side, and then you spray across, and then you go spray, spray. Okay, there's a few people laughing. I'm not sure whether you're laughing at me, at yourselves, at the fact that we're doing something like this in a group, at the fact that it's a funny thing to do. I don't know, but you can sit down. Thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause. So this sprinkler thing was a common theme throughout the tour. This was the team's gimmick. It was a relation, like I said, between the players and the crowd. It was something that we did to celebrate. They seemed to be having a bit of fun there. This was their thing. And I'm suggesting that good teams have a thing. They have a little bit of fun with themselves. They have a theme that goes through their work. The sprinkler dance being an example of that. But there are other characteristics to being a good team. Oh, you know the A-team. Everybody knows the A-team. Okay. Lots of characteristics that I reckon are pretty important. I've heard, I think, 4 different speakers talk about this concept of continuous improvement. I've heard people refer to it as relentless improvement as well. This idea that good teams will find ways to continually improve what they're doing and how they're doing it. And that's not about identifying improvements that other people can make or that the organization can make to help us be more successful. It's about us finding ways to improve ourselves. Good teams will find ways to improve themselves, not find things to complain about, that if other people changed, things would be better. So to me, this is a characteristic of a really good team, this Kaizen idea. Now, this could be to do with technical competence, it could be to do with multi-skilling, it could be any sort of thing, really, but it almost doesn't matter what it is, as long as the team are in that habit. And if you can see that happening, that's a sign of a mature, agile team. Another sign of a mature, agile team is that they manage their own conflict. Again, I'm not expecting you to know who this person is. To be perfectly honest with you, I didn't know who this person was. This guy is called Joachim Noah, who was a new, I don't know what they call them rookies in the first year of joining the team. And coincidentally, we're talking about the Chicago Bulls again, but this was from 2008, so fairly recent. And Joachim Noah, in his first season at the Chicago Bulls, during practice, had an argument with the coach. Not sure what they were arguing about. It might have been tactics, it might have been to do with his performance, but he had an argument with the coach, a stand-up argument with the coach, face-to-face argument. And what happened as a result of that was that the rest of the team decided that Joachim Noah shouldn't play for the next 3 games. Not the coach, not the fans, his teammates decided that because of that, he deserved to sit out the next 3 games. And this got picked up in the press, as you can imagine. And the newspapers were interviewing him, and they said, so how do you feel about this? How do you feel about the team banning you, suspending you from play? And he said, well, to be honest, it doesn't really matter how I feel about it. It's my teammates' decision, and I respect that. So this reminds me of a workshop that I was in probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I was facilitating the workshop. And at the start of the workshop, we go through the kind of rules of and the agenda and the behaviours and the norms for the workshop, what's expected, what's not. So I asked the team, well, what do you normally do in these types of situations? What rules do you have for your meetings, for your workshops? And they said, well, you know, we should start on time, we should finish on time, we should respect each other's opinions, all this kind of stuff. And they also said, you know, our phone, that's a good point actually, our phones should be off, all right? Our laptops should be off, we don't want to be disturbed. And so I wrote all this stuff down on a piece of flip chart paper and stuck it on the wall, and we started the workshop. And about half an hour into the workshop, somebody got their laptop out, put it on the desk, started doing their emails. And a few of the other guys looked at them, looked around, looked at me, looked at the sheet of flip chart paper on the wall, but carried on. It was almost as if they were expecting me to pull this person up on breaking the rules that they created as a team. Now I could do that obviously because I was in the role of the facilitator. I could have done that. But what was more interesting to me was why the team weren't managing this themselves. So teams that rely on a Scrum Master to uphold their rules, that's good. Teams that uphold their rules themselves, even better. Manage themselves. Conflict management. Which brings me on to this idea that if the team can start taking steps, taking actions, managing themselves in such a way that they don't need a facilitator, they don't need a Scrum Master, they don't need a coach, that's, to me, a really good sign of a mature Agile team. The fact that they are independent. When I talk to Scrum Masters, I give them 2 pieces of advice. The first piece of advice is, whenever you're faced with a problem or a challenge, ask the team. Doesn't matter how difficult that question is, how difficult that problem is, how difficult that challenge is, ask the team what they think the answer should be. The second piece of advice is, go into the role of Scrum Master with the full intention of making yourself unnecessary, so that the team don't need you. Much more likely to have a much more productive, much more self-managing team. So look for signs of independence as a signal of a mature Agile team. The next characteristic that I think is a good signal that we have a mature Agile team is that they are taking account for their results. They take pride in their work. They take pride in the fact that they deliver and how they deliver. So we have a DIY company in the UK, not wishing to do any kind of advertising for them, but their current advertising slogan is, "It's got our name on it." You can rest assured that the quality of these products are high because we're happy to write our name on this product. And I think Agile teams should be comfortable, and members of the Agile team should be comfortable with saying, yeah, I wrote this, I built this, got any questions? Here's my mobile number. All right. Attention to results, quality. I wanted to use a different picture for this, but I wasn't allowed. David Anderson yesterday. I sat in on David Anderson's talk. Anybody else sitting on David Anderson's talk yesterday? Yeah, there's something I want to pull out of that one, which he said a metric that you might want to track in your operations reviews is bugs per feature. It's an indication of quality. All right? And I'd say, yeah, that might be a really good thing to track. I'd put a little caveat on that one, because in my experience, when bugs per feature are being tracked by management, bugs per feature definitely go down. All right? If bugs per feature are being tracked by the team to improve themselves, that's a much more powerful metric. So think about not just what's being measured, but who it's being measured by. Teams should be looking, in my opinion, for things that are functionally sufficient, so we're not over-engineering things, and technically excellent. That's a tough thing to measure. I'm going to run a test for you now. What is that? Sorry? A carrot? Spaceship? Any other ideas? A bird? A kite? Yeah, it could be. So if I put it up that way, submarine, maybe? It is actually a rocket, okay, as drawn by my 4-year-old son. So this is my attempt at saying this is something that is functionally sufficient. All right? You know what it is. But it's got everything there that you need, really. Technically excellent. Might be stretching it a little bit with my 4-year-old's drawing. Okay? But would he be happy putting his name to it? Yeah. We probably need to work on his W's, but he's happy putting his name to it. All right? He's proud of his work. It's a good thing. Characteristic of a good team. Confident to put their name to what they've built. Now, I'm not a Manchester United fan, don't get me wrong, so it kind of pains me to say this, but seeing as we're on a slightly sporty theme, I'll just carry this on. Good Agile teams are predictable. You're fairly confident what you're going to get from them. You're fairly confident that what you're going to get is good. Now, the Premier League in England has been running for 19 years. How many times have Manchester United not finished in the top 3? Have a guess. 0. Spot on. They've never finished outside the top 3. In fact, they've only finished 3rd 3 times. So 3 times out of 16, they finished outside the top 2. Very predictable. Very predictable. You know what you're expecting. That's another sign of a good team. Equally, coming back a little bit to our sprinkler dance, good Agile teams have fun. They have fun outside of work and they have fun inside of work. They know how to turn work into a pleasurable experience. And they reap the rewards of that. They're not scared to experiment, try new things, to improve themselves, to improve the product, to improve the organization. I'm not going to say where this was, but this is a Norwegian person with a Scrum tattoo on their belly. All right. Having a little bit of fun is a sign of a good Agile team. But we still don't know how to measure these things. Okay, it's still quite tough to measure. Because all this stuff is very intangible. Fun, how do you measure fun? How do you measure attention to detail, attention to quality? How do you measure independence? All good things, but hard to measure. And Scott Bellware, I was in Scott Bellware's talk yesterday. Anybody else in that one? Few of us. He talked about intangibles and tangibles. And he said, when you're measuring things, the easy thing to measure is the tangible. We can see it, we can touch it, we can feel it. We can hold it, we can weigh it. Intangibles, very hard. However, the power, the benefit, the real benefit you get from measurement is usually found in those intangibles. So how do we measure these things? So there we go. The intangibles are harder to measure, but they're more important. Now, yeah, last year at NDC, another very good conference, Tom Gilb stood up on stage. Was anybody here last year? Well, we've got some repeat customers. This is good. Did anybody see Tom last year? He said last year, not sure whether you remember this one as vividly as I do, but he said any quality requirement is quantifiable. You give me anything, any requirement, I will show you a way of measuring it, and I will prove it to you. And I think he's doing the same thing this year with Kai. They've got some workshops going on, which I'd recommend you go along to, so to show you how you can measure anything if it's good enough. If it's a good thing to measure, then we can find a way of measuring it. So it's difficult, but it's possible. Now, the standard that we've got at the moment, or we've had for a while, is the Nokia test. Who's heard of the Nokia test? What do you think of it? No strong views? I mean, the first problem with the Nokia test is it's not actually from Nokia, right? But the Nokia, the name the Nokia test has stuck. It was actually first devised at Nokia Siemens Networks, and people were just lazy and they called it the Nokia test. It's now started to become called the ScrumBut test because, well, for obvious reasons. But it's a nice thing that it's taking it away from Nokia, because that's a bit unfair on Nokia. The ScrumBut test, the Nokia test, measures these factors. So testing, product backlogs, estimates, burn downs, iterations, product owner, as a way of trying to quantify how agile this team is. And this was probably about, 2011. This is probably about 7 or 8 years old now, this Nokia test, this ScrumBut test. And there are some really good things about it. It covers some important points, right? And you can actually track your progress over time. So as a team, you can plot your progress where you are now, and you can see how you're improving or not over time. That's really useful. In my opinion, however, it just focuses on practices. The tangible. It doesn't really get down into the intangible. And it wasn't designed for you, so is it relevant for you? It also has things like user stories in there, which, you can be agile without using user stories, right? And just by using user stories doesn't make you agile. So that's a little bit of a, what would you say, a kind of paradox for me. We've got some very arguable weightings, and I'll give you an example of this. So this is a question from the ScrumBut test, question 4 on the product owner. So if you say, we don't have a product owner, you get no points. Seems sensible. If you have a product owner, but they don't understand Scrum, you get a point. If you have a product owner that doesn't understand Scrum, and you then upgrade to a product owner that does understand Scrum but disrupts the team, you get an extra point. You get a product owner that doesn't disrupt the team but isn't involved with the team, you get more points. Now, I would argue that I'd probably rather have a product owner that disrupts the team than a product owner that's not involved with the team. Maybe. Maybe not. You can also have a product owner that motivates the team. That's where you get your highest marks, a product owner that motivates the team. And you might have a product owner that motivates the team without a clear product backlog. What points do you get for that? So there's some arguable weightings in this ScrumBut test, but it's a pretty good start. We might, so Jesus was kind of giving me the idea that we're thinking about the Agile Manifesto in our assessment of our team's agility, and that's a pretty good place to start, the Agile Manifesto, because that's not very practice based. That's values and principles based. It's slightly more intangible. So we might take the 4 values of the Agile Manifesto and say, well, where are we? Well, we're not very good at talking with our product owners, but we're pretty good at responding to change. Relatively speaking, we're producing some working software, but not a huge amount. And our individuals and interactions, they could probably do with some work as well. And over time, we'll measure it again, and we'll see some improvements. We're still not really making any progress with this product owner side of things. We're not collaborating with our customers until now. And now we can see our progress. This might be measured monthly, it might be measured quarterly, it might be measured by release. But each team can see where they are. Now, what is this? Is this 6 out of 10? Maybe? 60 out of 100? Don't know. Is it that, well, at this point, the team is self-organizing? So we could go for numbers, we could go for descriptions, we could marry the two. We might decide to go a step further and look at the principles of the Agile Manifesto. So there are 12 principles of the Agile Manifesto. This I've taken from, well, the first time I saw this pocket-sized principles, turning the principles of the Agile Manifesto into 3 words or less. The first person I saw do this was Bob Sarney. It's a game, an activity that's posted on Tasty Cupcakes now. So it's more of a collective ownership type thing. But there are 12 principles, and we can assess ourselves against these. That might be a good thing. Again, how do we come up with the numbers? How do we come up with the levels, the grades? That's something we could work on with the team, perhaps. But we could still see ourselves improving over time. Might be a good thing. Or, this is what's called the high performance metaphor, which is taken from Lisa Adkins' book, Coaching Agile Teams. And what Lisa recommends here is building up a metaphor of high performance with your team. So what are the roots that you're basing your performance on, you're basing your team on? And what she's done here as an example is the Scrum values plus a couple of others. Then what are the branches or the leaves on your tree? So the practices or perhaps the principles that we're going to abide by. What does Agile mean to them, basically? And if we have strong roots and if we follow those principles or those practices, then we will get this fruit as a result. We will get these results. So team that can do anything. We get business value faster. These kinds of things. And asking the team, well, what does Agile mean to you? Might be a good place to start. And whatever you come up with, it might be quite simple like this. So new ideas, team efficiency, fun learning. All right, we might track our progress over time, add up the averages or add up the totals within our team and see them progress over time or perhaps regress over time. I would suggest that all of those things are pretty good. My all-star Agile team, if I was going to suggest, based on what I've talked through in this presentation so far, my all-star Agile team would probably consist of a number of characteristics, 8 in fact. The first one being a clear goal. Okay, this England cricket team, they had a clear goal. The one thing they were focusing on was the Ashes. The moment we have a clear, concise and, if possible, motivating goal, teams are more likely to become better, they're more likely to become more agile, they're more likely to self-organize towards that clear goal. Stability. Allow this team to grow together. Allow them to find out what works, how things work within this team. Agile teams, the more stable they are, the better they are. So let's measure stability. Support. The England cricket team had a lot of behind-the-scenes help. Some servant leadership, so perhaps we need to measure servant leadership, enabling teams to be good teams. Continuous improvement, I definitely throw in there. The ability and the desire and the evidence of improving as a team. Relentlessly. I like that word, relentless. It came up yesterday. Self-management, the ability to manage their own conflicts, like with Geoff and Noah, rather than relying on outsiders or managers or scrum masters to manage that. That's a good sign of an agile team. Paying attention to results, predictability, 2 of the others, and fun, I would put in there. So these would be my 8. I'm just going to pick 8. But again, I still haven't given you any idea as to what these things might mean. Just going to wait for someone to take a picture of this slide before I move on. Good stuff. Right, so clear goal. Take one of them. Clear goal. All right, now, how are we going to measure this? On the one hand, the bigger your scale, the better. Who was it yesterday? I think it was Kevlin said yesterday, if you ask people how good they are at something on a scale of 0 being your grandmother and 10 being the person that wrote the language, most people would just say around about 7. All right? So the wider the scale, the more accurate your ratings might be. But you've got to think of more definitions for those ratings. So I suggest starting at 1 to 10 for now. You might want to expand that. But clear goal, here's an example. So the first stage might be delivering work with ad hoc priorities. So we're delivering something, but we're not really worried about what the priority is. We're just doing stuff. Okay, so perhaps, as Jesus was saying, we're just doing what the product owner is asking us to do, whatever it is today. The next step up for the team might be clear prioritized backlog, but there's no theme for the iteration. So we're just taking the most important stuff from the really clearly prioritized backlog, but there's no coherence to what we're doing. We're just picking individual features and putting them together. I would suggest the next stage might be, we have a prioritized backlog and we have a theme for the iteration. Makes sense? The next stage, that our iteration goal, if we have such a thing, is part of a release goal. So that not only do we have a theme for the iteration, but this fits within the strategic direction of the project. where this release is going. And this release goal has clear customer representation. Okay, that might be what would that be, about a 7 out of 10, something like that? And maybe an 8 or a 9, that the iteration and the release goals are mapped to the strategic direction of the company. So outside of this project, we have greater strategic direction, and we have some clear return on investment justification for what we're doing. So that'd be about a 9 out of 10. Not a 10, but a 9. Another one, self-management. We might start with, well, the team updates the burn down throughout the iteration. Okay. The next one, that the team actively utilizes the iteration artifacts to manage themselves. So it might just be more than the burn down. And there's a point to it. The whole team is involved in the decision-making process and owns the decisions. So not just one person updating this stuff, but the whole team doing it actively, not just the lead. And now the team is readily critique and explore multiple options before deciding the way forward. I've seen a few tweets this morning from talks today about, the more options you have, the more you'll find yourself saying no. That's a good thing. Okay? In the early stages of team formation in an agile team, coming to an agreement is quite difficult. And certainly in Scrum we talk about teams coming to a consensus, which takes time, it's quite difficult. And so teams will jump at the first sign of an agreement. And we'll take that. Really good teams will actually say, well, let's explore a few options. And we're not really going to be sure about whether we've got the right one until we've got at least 3. I know some organisations that don't make a decision until they've got 7 different options. And they find that 6 and 7 are really difficult to come up with. Interesting, anyway. I'd say sort of 8, 9 out of 10. Teams change their process in order to improve and require no facilitation to manage their own impediments. So they will actively find ways to change their process so that they can manage themselves. Take ownership. Fun is a difficult one. Probably the least tangible of all of these things. Team is delivering, but there's clear unresolved or unsurfaced tension. You still get a point because you're delivering stuff. All right? And tension's a good thing, but we want it to be resolved, we want it to be constructive, we want to bring it to the surface. The next step I would suggest would be that teams have an identity, so we know what this team is. I've gone forward 2 steps now. Teams have an identity and have genuine conversations. We like this idea of banter. Does banter translate well? A little bit of kind of teasing and fun and making fun of each other, that kind of thing. So we like that, non-abusive, but banter. So that starts to flow. The next stage is where, as a team, we can actually acknowledge and appreciate failure. Failures are fun. And become part of the team concept. So rather than one person screwed up, okay, we as a team, we decided this, it didn't work out. Hey, that was good. Redefining the F word, if you like. Concept of the team now goes beyond the boundaries of work. I'm not suggesting that we're all massive friends on Facebook or something like that, or we all go to the same church or what have you, but as a team we can have conversations, we have some kind of common boundaries, just not just within the concept of this project or the concept of this work. And now we're around here where the team have devised their own rituals, their own practices for making work fun while being effective. And that's a balance. So they'll turn work into a fun activity. Now all of these I've only gone around to 9. 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I haven't ever gone all the way around to 10. Why do you think that would be? There's always room for improvement, right? And a good team knows that. So a good team, when they're just about there, will find a way to raise the bar. When the fruit is almost within touching distance, they'll find a way to raise the bar a little bit higher. Good teams will do that. So they'll turn this bar up to 11, if you like. So these are the 8 characteristics of my all-star Scrum team, and we can measure the progress as a team going across this, and we can identify areas where we're perhaps lagging behind, areas of focus perhaps for our retrospectives, and see this thing growing over time, and even change them, even change the characteristics that we think are agile to us. Now, I also promised you some poetry. A little bit nervous about this one. Okay. Never done poetry before in my life, but hey, I stumbled across this this poem. It's by a guy called Edgar A. Guest, and if you don't mind, I'll read it off here. So what he says is, it's all very well to have courage and skill, and it's fine to be counted a star. But the single deed, with its touch of thrill, doesn't tell the man you are. For there's no lone hand in the game we play. We must work to a bigger scheme. And the thing that counts in the world today is how do you pull with the team. They may sound your praise and call you great. They may single you out for fame. But you must work with your running mate, or you'll never win the game. Oh, never the work of life is done by the man with a selfish dream. For the battle is lost, or the battle is won, by the spirit of the team. You may think it fine to be praised for skill, but a greater thing to do is to set your mind and set your will on the goal that's just in view. It's helping your fellow man to score when his chances hopeless seem. It's forgetting self till the game is o'er and fighting for the team. That's pretty good. Oh, thank you. So, I've deliberately left a little bit of time here for some questions, fully in the knowledge that I might get nothing. But hey, do you have any questions? Yes, Jesus. How important do I think it is to have? How agile is? This is a bit of a sensitive point for me. Okay, I feel quite strongly about this. So I'm from the project manager background. I was a project manager, but I don't think there is a role for a project manager in a truly agile team. I see organisations out there that have this role, agile project manager, and I don't like it. I think, again, for those of you that don't know anything about my background, I used to work at British Telecom. Okay, and in British Telecom we had, sort of probably 9 years ago, we started this agile thing, and they decided Scrum, okay, as a lot of organisations do, and they said, well, Scrum doesn't have project managers. We do. Scrum has Scrum Masters. We don't. Project managers, you are now called Scrum Masters. Okay? And some of those people did really well in that role, but quite a lot of them, it wasn't natural for them. The skill set's very different. And what that says, for a number of things, that sends the wrong message. It sends a message that there is still somebody who is responsible for this team. There is still somebody that, if we as a team stay quiet long enough, they'll make a decision for us, because part of their job description is to make a decision. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that no project manager would make a really good part of a Scrum team, would make a really good coach, would make a really good Scrum Master if you're doing Scrum. But the chances are, if you've got someone in the role of project manager, even if you put the word agile before it, in my experience, I've never seen a team truly self-organise when there's been an agile project manager in place. The other downside to that is I've never really seen a good product owner when there's an agile project manager in place. Because there's no need to have a product owner. We can make do with an agile project manager. And in a lot of organisations, we actually need to bring our product owners in. We need a reason to bring our product owners in. And having an agile project manager reduces that need. But like I said, this is just my personal opinion. There are lots of people out there that would say something very different. This is just from my experience. Did that answer your question, Jesus? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? What in particular do you think people aren't excited about, in your opinion? Okay, so to me there's two things in that. So there was the not being excited about the daily scrum and the retrospectives and the planning and things like that. And there was also we always want to talk to the manager to get decisions made. Is that right? So if I split those two out, the first one I've seen quite a bit of, and something that I talk about quite a lot, and we'll be talking about afterwards actually in my next talk, which is that once you've got a measure in place, that measure, and you turn that into a target, that measure becomes useless. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. At BT, when they started trying to work out, well, how agile are we? They said, well, retrospectives are part of Agile. So if we do retrospectives, that must be a good thing. So if you do retrospectives, you get points. And so we had teams, projects, programs that had a retrospective every week because it gave them more ticks in the boxes. And people hated that. What was the point? Teams, individuals will only buy into something if they can see a point to it. Right, rather than just following blindly a process that somebody has thrown down, there has to be a point to it. So the first one is, I quite liked what Scott was talking about yesterday, which is actually challenge, do we need these things? Now in the early stages, things like retrospectives I wouldn't recommend doing away with. Things like daily stand-ups I wouldn't recommend doing away with. So I would put a lot of my effort into working with the team into, well, why is this useful? And how else could you solve this problem? If you can come up with a better way of updating your teammates and managing yourselves than using the daily scrum, I'm all ears. But unless you've got a better idea, then let's go with what there is. The second part to your question, which was around teams always want to go to their managers, to me, I've seen quite a lot, and without exception, this has been in an organisation with a culture of fear. Fear that if we make the wrong decision, we will be punished. And so if there's a decision that's risky, I want somebody else to make that decision for me. Makes sense. Why would I stick my head up above the parapet if it could be shot off? So a lot of my energy there goes into, well, how can we create an environment where bad information is good information? And making wrong decisions is really useful to us. So again, seeing as the basketball thing went so well, Michael Jordan, famous quote of his that I really, really like is, I've lost over 300 games of basketball. I've missed thousands of shots. Over 100 times my teammates have trusted me to take the game-winning shot and I've missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that's why I've succeeded. And until we've got a culture in our organisation like that, teams are naturally going to hide behind whatever advocacy of responsibility they can find. That makes sense. Human survival. So I split those two out. Does that make sense why I've split them out? Because they're not necessarily related, but I do see them in the same places. Most teams, when given the opportunity to use their knowledge, to use their creativity, to use their intelligence without fear of being metaphorically shot if it turns out to be a mistake, jump at that chance. This is a great opportunity for them to try things, to play around for real. You guys like playing around, right? There are reasons why they might not. Does that answer your question? Cool. How are we doing? Time for one more? One more question? We're on a roll here. Hat trick. Yeah. So teams that are starting up with Agile, they have a few practices in place, but they're not going to the next stage. Is that what you're saying? Right. So really just interested in me doing my bit. Right. I see this a lot. And I've done some analysis into this, and again, it's sport-based, but that's my thing. But most of the organisations that I see, the reward, the incentive, the promotion structures that we have in place are very individualistic focus. Right? You do really well at what you do, and you might get to the next stage. Be the best that you can be at X, Y, Z. You might get a promotion, that kind of thing. Very similar to sports. You know, they reward football anyway. Footballers are rewarded for scoring goals. They get a bonus every time they score a goal. Right? There's no bonus for the defender that clears the ball off the line that stops the other team scoring a goal. And the bonuses for passing to a teammate so that they can score are always smaller than the bonuses for scoring a goal yourself. So the incentives are there to do the best that I can do rather than help the team. Basketball's got it differently. So you get rewarded, and not just financially, but also within the press, within, you know, respect-wise within the game. You are rewarded for being good at technical rebounds. You're rewarded for being good at assists. And I don't think organisations are very good at rewarding assists. Okay, they're not very good at rewarding team behaviours, helping your teammate, helping the project. And I think that's where we need to go with that. Otherwise, if I'm incentivised to be the best that I can be at what I do, that's what I'll do. There's a peer pressure that comes into it as well, but peer pressure is almost always outweighed by what the corporation explicitly rewards and values. Does that sound like what's the environment that you're talking about? Somewhat. We're very, very far behind in how we incentivise and reward and the career progression incentives that we have within our organisation. Very, very far behind where we should be as organisations. And this is something that, you know, Agile is highlighting, which is a good thing. Well, thank you very much for proving that Norwegian crowds are interactive. All right, they do ask questions, they do partake. I really value that. I really appreciate that. Now, don't forget, there's some kind of whoa there. Right, vote green. I was told to remind you to vote green. I don't know what vote green means, but vote green. All right, thank you very much.